to be here. Thank you. With you all tonight. Thank you so much. One thing about me is the first time someone needed me to write a bio, I did not like it. I did not do it. I did not like doing that. Let's see if that's still echoing. Okay. I did not like writing my own bio. And I didn't like writing my own bio until I started having fun with it and thinking of it more like a poem. It's hard to talk about ourselves. It's hard to talk about what we've accomplished sometimes. And if I treat it like art, that makes it go way easier, which is basically the theme of what I have to share with you all tonight. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, does everyone see my slideshow? Can you give me a thumbs up? All right, thank you. Gretchen, I see you especially, and so I appreciated that thumbs up. Welcome to Black Creativity and Black Imagination. This project is really dear to me. It sprung up out of a course that I took at Union Theological Seminary, and the work that I did in this course, it was a trauma in the Bible course with Dr. David Carr.
Nova, it's not sharing your PowerPoint. It's sharing a Word document.
Oh, it's sharing my document? All right. Thank you for letting me know. That's important too. Let's see.
Well, I just know because we had sat with you and I know.
Is this one, is it doing the right one now?
Yes, that's the right one.
Amazing. Cool. Well, you were looking at my notes earlier, and now you're looking at my PowerPoint. I'm glad we're all on the same page now. I love technology. But yes, this work came out of a course I took on trauma in the Bible with Dr. David Carr, and it was an amazing course. I learned a lot, but namely, I really fell in love with the Bible. And so without further ado, here we go. Black creativity and Black imagination. Let's click. Okay, first intros. I want to talk about a few things. I want to talk about where I live. I live on Lenape land, and now it is called Brooklyn, New York. I love being here. Brooklyn is wonderful, and it's close to other places I love. You can also find me at Pendle Hill in Pennsylvania often, and in Philadelphia with my mother and my sister who are on this call right now. And maybe they'll wave. I can't see them now, but they're here. The identities I hold in this world that really have been rising up for me lately, I think are really important to share. I am Black, I am queer, and I am full of gender, which I will talk more about. I don't think of gender as a one size fits all thing. And so I appreciate a diversity of gender experiences for myself. I'm also chronically ill. It's something that comes up in my life a lot, and it's something that I live with that impacts my day to day. So I've begun talking about that too in some of my work. And yeah, my work in the world, as Brown said, I am the conference and events coordinator at FGC, and I also do spiritual and creative direction and facilitation. That's a lot of my passion work, and it comes up a lot in my FGC work. But yeah, it's a wide variety of things that I do on my day to day, and I'm happy to share a snapshot of that with you tonight. Some things that you might need for tonight. I don't know if you came prepared to do some art, some crafts, some poetry, but I would love to invite you to participate fully in this experience by writing or creating in some way, shape, or form. That means that if you need to take a moment and get a notebook, a piece of paper, a pen, go ahead and do that for yourself, because we will be creating today. I can talk a lot, but I appreciate a lecture that has a balance of conversation and creation. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. So you might need art and writing supplies. You might need snacks or a drink for some comfort in your body. I definitely have at least one beverage with me at all times. And I would love to invite you to bring some deep generosity for yourself and for others. We will be talking about things that can be kind of difficult, that can be hard, because what we're talking about is racial justice. What we're talking about is grief. What we're talking about is flowing through the complexity of human experience. Um, and so it's kind of nice to be gentle and generous with yourself when you're talking about those hard things. I know there were some ground rules laid out, but I would love to just take some time to read these three quotes, which really inform the way that I show up to creative spaces. Um, the first is from Audre Lorde. When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid. The next is from James Baldwin. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And the final one is poet June Jordan. Poetry is a political act because it involves telling the truth. And as we share space today, I would love to just invite folks to sit with those quotes and what they might mean. And if anyone has thoughts about norms or guidelines, ground rules for the space that might be coming to you as you reflect on those words, I'd appreciate if you raised a Zoom hand and offered those to the group. I will allow just about a minute for this overall. So in the next minute, if anyone has any shares, I know I appreciate the norm in a space of flow in, flow out. So if you're a person who generally doesn't take much time to start speaking, it could be a time to reflect on that and kind of flow out and allow someone else to flow in by quieting yourself. If you're a person who's generally quiet, perhaps you can flow in and take up space rather than staying kind of out in the deep end. So that's just one example of a norm. If you want to drop one in the chat or raise a Zoom hand so that I can see you and then say one out loud. All right, we've just about hit our minute. Some other norms that I think about are making sure that we are being aware of the impact of our words. And if we say something that causes another person to feel harmed, hurt, we attend to that. Um, Another norm is just to be curious. I think when we enter into spaces with curiosity, things go much more smoothly, and there's just more space in the world of curiosity. So I'd love to just invite you all to reflect on those as we talk with each other. I see something in the chat. It is another introduction. Welcome, David. Thank you for being here. All right, great. I'm going to proceed. The first thing that I'd like to talk a little bit about is anti-Black racism or anti-Blackness. In the title of my presentation, I did use the term anti-Blackness. Black creativity and Black imagination and anti-Black world is how I conceptualize this project. And when I'm talking about anti-Blackness, for folks who might have questions or curiosities about that, what I'm talking about is a specific kind of racism that's experienced by Black people in the United States, especially. And what I'm talking about is a specific type of racism that's experienced by Black people that is systemic and or interpersonal. So that means that it happens on systems levels, and it also happens in interpersonal levels and in social situations. So I'm talking about something that is really complex, and really insidious in a lot of ways. And for this conversation tonight, I am talking about Blackness and Black people. There are tons of people who experience racism in different identity groups. And for this research and this particular study, I'm speaking about Blackness. I'm happy to have conversations outside of this about other groups, but that is not what we're doing in this chunk of time. I appreciate any other questions, and also I'd like to really focus at this time on anti-Black racism for this conversation. If there are questions about that, happy to chat later. And if you'd like resources about anti-Blackness, anti-Black racism, and antidotes, I will send out these resources. These are just a few links of things that you can access and read more. So, the Bible, my favorite book. When I think about the Bible, I think about that sacred text specifically as one of many sacred texts. And if you see this picture, it's a stack of books. There's Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, Salvation, Black People in Love by Bell Hooks, The Collected Poems of Audre Lorde, and a copy of the JPS Tanakh. I say that the Bible is one of many because I consider all of the texts in this picture to be Bibles to me, not just the one that we read along to at worship or that we've heard people preach from at a Sunday service in whatever denomination we belong to. I feel very strongly that there are so many versions of the Bible because I think of the Bible as a collection of stories that have something to teach us about faith, about spirit, about belonging. And it's an ever changing and evolving idea. For me, when I started thinking about the Bible as a set of stories and a set of ideas, that's when it became really spacious and allowed me to really think about how a sacred text can support me in conversing with issues of oppression and help build space for justice in my action and creation, for my own self. And as we're getting into the nitty gritty of the Bible today, we're going to be talking about Psalm 89. Can folks give me kind of like a thumbs up or a head nod if you're familiar with the Psalms in the Bible? I see some thumbs up, some people familiar with the Psalms in the biblical text. Amazing. So some of the functions of the Psalms in the biblical text are really to teach folks to do rituals. It's incredibly ritualistic as a set of texts, and each psalm is like sung out loud. It's a performance. And when I started learning about how psalms were used for ritual to flow through experiences, it really sparked something in me. And Psalm 89 specifically is a community appeal to God from a group of exiled Judeans that God will remain faithful to a covenant, which ensures the protection of the Davidic monarch. That's a lot of words that I learned at seminary. And so we're going to break it down. We're going to say, first, what's a covenant? If you're unfamiliar with the concept of a biblical covenant, it's a promise. It's a really big biblical promise. And there's one such promise in the Bible between God and the people who are the biblical in-group, who at this point of Psalm 89 are exiled Judeans. And it's that there's always going to be a king. There's always going to be a king from the line of David in power, and that king will always be strong. And that's what Psalm 89 is really referencing. It's referencing that covenant. And at the end of that psalm, there's a community appeal. And that is a request from a group of people who are in a group together. So this psalm's got a few things. It's got that promise, and it's got a little bit of a community appeal. They are asking God for something, for protection, for a return on whatever their investment is. However you'd like to think about it, there's a request being made of God due to this specific relationship that came about through this covenant. So what I'm going to do right now, because I would love folks to be in it with me, is I'm actually going to stop my share. And I'm going to drop the link to my presentation in the chat so that if you are interested, you can follow along with me. It should be on view for folks. I know I'm the kind of person who really appreciates reading along at presentations. So it's a Google Doc and you can get in there for viewing. Anyone with the link should be able to view.
I had to request access.
Oh, okay. Try it again. Refresh it. I just updated. I see people in there now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we in? Amazing. So if you click where it says Psalm 89, there's the text of the psalm is in there. I actually pulled this from Safaria, which is a JPS translation. And we're going to get started and do a little bit of reading of Psalm 89 together. And I'll explain a little bit about what's going on and then talk about how it relates to creativity and imagination for me. And if you have questions, I'm happy to, if you put them in the chat, I'll read them out later. If you have questions that rise up as I'm talking, we'll have a time period for that. Does that sound good to folks? Can I get a thumbs up if that sounds good? Great, thank you. I love the feedback. Okay. Oh, now I need to open the phone. Actually, okay, a little vibe check. Like I was a classroom teacher, and so I had like students read aloud. Are folks into the idea of kind of reading aloud so that I'm not the only person talking? There's like so many lovely people here, and I want to hear your voices as well. The first section, if you've clicked, is verses 1 through 18. If someone's down to read verses 1 through 18, I would really love that. I can put it up on the screen share. Will someone raise their Zoom hand if you're open to reading it? Okay, Juliana.
As the Hebrew Bible professor here, I feel the obligation to
I
lead
love
us
it.
off.
Let's go.
So, a Maskil of Ethan the Ezrahite. I will sing of the Lord's steadfast love forever. To all generations, I will proclaim your faithfulness with my mouth. I declare your steadfast love is confirmed forever. There in the heavens, you establish your faithfulness. I've made a covenant with my chosen one. I've sworn to my servant David, I will establish your offspring forever. I will confirm your throne for all generations. Selah. Your wonders, O Lord, are praised by the heavens, your faithfulness too in the assembly of the holy beings. For who in the skies can equal the Lord, can compare with the Lord among the divine beings? A God greatly dreaded in the council of holy beings, held in awe by all around him. O Lord, God of hosts, who is mighty like you, O Lord? Your faithfulness surrounds you, your rule the swelling of the sea when its waves surge, you still them. You crushed Rahab. He was like a corpse. With your powerful arm, you scattered your enemies. The heaven is yours, the earth too. The world and all it holds, you establish them. Keep going.
Yes, we're going to
Okay.
go until truly our shield. Yep.
North and south, you created them. Tabor and Hermon, sing forth your name. Yours is an arm endowed with might. Your hand is strong, your right hand exalted. Righteousness and justice are the base of your throne. Steadfast love and faithfulness stand before you. Happy is the people who know the joyful shout. O Lord, they walk in the light of your presence. They rejoice in your name all day long. They are exalted through your righteousness, for you are their strength in which they glory. Our horn is exalted through your favor. Truly, our shield is of the Lord, our King, the Holy One of Israel.
Thank you so much for reading that, Juliana. All right, I'm going to stop my share. Now, does anybody have any noticings about what's going on in there? Is there anything that stood out to you? We can do one word answers, 2 word answers, however it flows, but what stood out to you there? You can type in the chat if you'd like as well. Allusions to 2 Samuel 7, yes. Can you say more about that if you'd like, Juliana? I know you have more. Righteousness and justice are the base of your throne. Yes. Other noticings? If you had to give that section a vibe, what vibe would you give it? Oh, it's the promise to David, a seemingly unconditional promise. Yep, that's that covenant. Which is right, yeah. What's that section doing? The vibe is basking. Let's go. What else is it giving? It's giving praising the power of God. Exactly. Yes. Yes. God is the best one. That's exactly what it's giving. Yes. It's giving promises, promises. It's giving God is the best God. It's giving praise, praise, praise. Why? What's that for? What has happened? These are the questions that come up for me when I read the Bible. I wonder, why did we need this? Why was this needed in this community? What was happening to them? So much so that they had to write a ritual psalm that included this specific kind of praise, because it's not simply praise, it's praise that is related to a military might. It's praise that's related to power, to the ability to destroy something else, to break something else down, to crush, to scatter, ruling over things like the ocean and enemies, defending a king who's going into battle. So what are these folks experiencing? If you look into the history, what's happening is this group of Judeans has been exiled, cut off from their home, cut off from each other in lots of ways, and sent out. They've been conquered in a war. And they've lost so much after spending so much time thinking, we're on top of the world. We have the greatest God. We have this lasting covenant. They lost. So what happens? How do we get through it? What do we need to remember to get through it? Thank you. Let's move on to the next section. I'm going to share again. And I went through this with my meeting, and it took us like 45 minutes. And so I'm really conscious of time right now. But I believe in us. We can do it. The next section, I think I will read this one, and then I'll call on someone else for the last bit. Then you spoke to your faithful ones in a vision and said, I have conferred power upon a warrior. I have exalted one chosen out of the people. I have found David, my servant, anointed him with my sacred oil. My hand shall be constantly with him, and my arm shall strengthen him. No enemy shall oppress him, no vile man afflict him. I will crush his adversaries before him. I will strike down those who hate him. My faithfulness and steadfast love shall be with him. His horn shall be exalted through my name. I will set his hand upon the sea, his right hand upon the rivers. He shall say to me, you are my Father, my God, the rock of my deliverance. I will appoint him firstborn, highest of the kings of the earth. I will maintain my steadfast love for him always. My covenant with him shall endure. I will establish his line forever, his throne as long as the heavens last. And I'm going to pause there because I do want to point out, I will establish his line forever, his throne as long as the heavens last. What happens to a group of people who have this as a core belief, this promise as a core belief, and then something shifts in the physical world? They have a belief of themselves as connected, deserving, powerful, worthy, and then something happens which changes that belief. They get conquered. They feel oppressed. They are oppressed. They're excluded. They're exiled. How do you talk to your God from that? That's what they're figuring out. That's what the psalm is figuring out. So as we go along, there's another section that I like to point out. And in poetry, which is one of my creative lanes, I would say, there's a thing that poets like to call a volta. And in a poem, it is a turning point. It's a place where you see something different is happening. It's where the poem kind of like takes you to a whole new space, kind of like maybe even in a jarring way. And so I like to joke and call this little section of Psalm 89 a volta, because it goes from praise, 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 we're so connected, God is so powerful, to, and I would love for someone to read the psalm at this point here, for yet you have rejected. Go ahead, Jaleesa.
Yet you have rejected, spurned, and become enraged at your anointed. You have repudiated the covenant with your servant. You have dragged his dignity in the dust. You have breached all his defenses, shattered his strongholds. All who pass by plunder him. He has become the butt of his neighbors. You have exalted the right hand of his adversaries and made all his enemies rejoice. You have turned back the blade of his sword and have not sustained him in battle. You have brought his splendor to an end and have hurled his throne to the ground. You have cut short the days of his youth. You have covered him with shame. Selah.
Thank you, Jaleesa. Do you notice the turn? Do you notice the shift? Yeah, thank you for that thumbs up, Lori. They want to know. They want to know. We're together. You made us a promise. Now we're rejected. You've rejected us. You're mad at us. Are you mad at us? The covenant's broken. What are people to do when they feel out of relationship with their God? How long, O Lord, will you forever hide your face? Will your fury blaze like fire? Oh, remember how short my life is. Why should you have created every man in vain? What man can live and not see death, can save himself from the clutches of Sheol, Salah? O Lord, where is your steadfast love of old, which you swore to David in your faithfulness? Remember, O Lord, the abuse flung at your servants that I have borne in my bosom from many peoples. How your enemies, O Lord, have flung abuse at your anointed at every step. Blessed is the Lord forever. Amen and amen. How long, O Lord, is the start of the community appeal, the request. The request. It's a question that's a really interesting one to me, and I'll talk more about that in specificity. I just wanted to read through the psalm before I read you my my lecture about it. I think the how long is one of the most interesting lines there. So I'm just going to take a moment. And if you have questions about the content of the psalm, again, I'm happy to address them if you put them in the chat. I am going to take 30 seconds to center myself, and then I'm going to read the fullness of a lecture. And then we'll get into one creation activity after that, if that sounds good to folks. Before I start with this, I do want to say that this lecture contains conversation references to, and it talks about the murder of Breonna Taylor. If you need to take care of yourself in any way, please do, because that is what this theological reflection is mostly about. Psychiatrist Judith Herman writes that traumatic events shatter the sense of connection between individual and community, often resulting in a crisis of faith. The world of Psalm 89 is a world of shattered assumptions, full of complexity, emotion, and dynamic relationships between individuals, groups, and systems of power. The world of Psalm 89 is, well, I said that already, in systems of power. In its ancient context, Psalm 89 offers a space for exiled Judeans to sit with the reality of the traumatic history outlined in the story world and navigate a strained relationship with the Lord from their existence in exile. It has also served as a place for me to sit in the knowingness of my value as a Black person in the United States, while simultaneously holding the reality of institutional racism, and for the case of this lecture, abuses of power and acts of violence perpetuated by law enforcement. Like the exiled Judean audience of Psalm 89 reflects on the covenant between the Lord and David in their post-monarchy context, I reflect on the promises of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness while living through the reality of systemic oppression. Like the resounding truth of a protest chant, Psalm 89 illuminates the resilience of a harmed collective as they confront, challenge, and question the power that seems to stand by while they ache, apparently, at its hand. Spirituality and religious engagement are often a positive force for healing and navigating any traumatic experience. And Psalm 89 reinforces this idea by beginning with praise and affirming the Lord's power over all. The authors of Psalm 89 reference the Davidic covenant after describing the faithfulness of the Lord. Considering the historical and traumatic consequences of the fall of the Davidic monarchy, I think about this reference as a direct confrontation between the Lord and the people. The ancient Judeans, by way of the psalmist, are saying, "We've got your praise. Don't forget your promise." The Davidic monarchy was a foundational aspect of the Judeans' collective identity, and the impact of the fall was clearly devastating. Yet the psalmist still chose to include a section of praise in this work. Much like the way it's guaranteed that Black Twitter will turn up with the jokes and humor in this white supremacist world, this shows me that despite the harsh realities of life in exile around them, they continued to engage with the divine in the way they knew how, the psalm. Yes, exiled Judeans knew that art was an answer, a potential response to the realities of injustice. When I reflect on legacies of anti-Blackness in the United States, I am often brought to a screeching halt. So much time has passed and so much seems the same. I pick up my pen and a notebook or a few magazines and some scissors and glue and attempt to place words and images until I can make some meaning of the intangibility of hate. This is the creative, transformative power of my Black imagination. One day in the summer of 2020, I walked down Fulton Street in Bed-Stuy and spotted a mural painted on the very busy, usually busy, street. Yellow block letters spelled out Black Lives Matter, a phrase I had heard, said, and hashtagged countless times before. But in that instance, it just hit different. Seeing those words, big, bold, and bright, near a regularly policed plaza on a summer day, gave me a new appreciation and even a pride for the community that I'm a part of. Affirmation is a crucial part of my spiritual practice, and to me, a Black Lives Matter mural in the heart of a historically Black community was just a clear affirmation and a message of resistance to any oppressive power. We are here, vibrantly present, and unafraid to paint ourselves onto the streets that you patrol each day. Like the psalmist's reminder to the Lord about the Davidic covenant, the mural was a community's way of leaning into their inner knowing and asserting the truth, even though that truth was in direct conflict with the story of their collective trauma, the story that's handed to us by the society we live in and the moments of the current experience. A king specifically chosen by the Lord, David occupies a place in the Judeans' theology that's not only rooted in collective memory, but also roots their collective memory, roots that collective identification. This is conveyed in lines like 19 to 37 of the Psalm. It's a narrative retelling of an oracle about the anointing. And I said the word oracle, and now I'm going to say, if you want to talk divination with me at some point, I'm very happy to talk about biblical divination. That's a sidebar. This is a naming of the truth of the chosenness of David. The act of naming is crucial to recreating stability in the life world after a traumatic event. Not only does Psalm 89 name David as the Lord's chosen one, it also explicitly outlines the terms of the covenant. Promises of military fortitude, intelligence, and exaltation occur, and most importantly, they're not confined to a moment in time. Even in the event that a descendant of David makes a mistake, the Lord may punish that king in particular, but will not abandon the monarchy. And that's lines 30 to 33 if you want to look that up. Ancient sufferers speak truth to power, naming the ways the Lord, who was meant to protect, has instead actively destroyed their king. This perception of abandonment does not leave them powerless or needy. It inspires them to ask questions of their deity. How long, O Lord, will you hide yourself forever? This is not a question of why. It's not a request for guidance about what to do. It's a duration question. It's a question about time. How long? There's a different assumption in that. The assumption is that it's going to be over. How long? The exiled Judean audience of this psalm is engaging in an act of refusal, proceeding from what they do not understand. And that misunderstanding is not about the truth of who they are. The question is indicative of their faith and their knowing. As I reflect on Psalm 89, I think about the moments when I ask the divine, how long? I think about the moments my relationship to Source seems shattered by another person like me suffering, gasping for breath in power's chokehold. I think about how in March of 2020, a 26-year-old Black woman named Breonna Taylor was killed by police in Louisville, Kentucky, while asleep in her bed. In September of 2020, no charges were brought against the officers who killed her. She was not a king or a monarch, but she was a divine being, perfectly created, perfectly human. Her life had value, yet, like so many Black people in the United States, even in death, the truth of her chosenness was not affirmed by the systems that were put in place to protect. As I continue to consider the ways that the murder of Breonna Taylor by law enforcement and the continued oppression of and disregard for Black life impacts my understanding and relationship to the divine, the response I have is complicated. These realities, this oppression, this necropolitic is highly traumatizing. It's so distressing, and I'm still processing. In my moments of despair and in my questions of duration, like the psalmist, I find solace in crying out to God, to my ancestors, to whomever might be listening. I find myself writing poems or maybe psalms. Before she was a meme, a story, a tweet, a martyr, she was a life. She was alive. Some used her image to sell magazines, perform allyship, and here we are again, waiting for some sign that we are safe. How long, O Lord, will we have to turn people into rallying cries? Redemptive suffering on the cross is a tale as old as our last Insta story. The clock tick-tocked too quick for us to stop to realize that the sacrifice Christ made is too great an expectation of those of us who are Black and brown and femme and queer. And how long, O Lord? Black bodies are not a lesson plan for folks to learn from. Divine pedagogy does not oppress. Dear Breonna, sibling, I am sorry you are now ancestor. One with spirit when you should still be someone's living breath of fresh air. For folks like me and Black bodies in the United States, this was not unusual or even unexpected. From the whipping post to the lynching tree to our own beds, Black people in this nation have suffered at the hands of power for generations, despite the truth that we know deep in our bones. Truly, our shield is of the Lord. The divine is not hidden from us, even when we are overwhelmed by pain, even when a holy life is cut short by an injustice unthinkable. We have long been the divine's great love. And like Psalm 89 teaches us, there is room for praise, lamentation, and prayer in our response to trauma and tragedy. There is room for our creativity, our ritual, our shouts, and our continuing revelation. Praise be to the Lord forever. Ashe and amen. Wow, thank you. for listening to all of those words. If folks need to take a bit of a bio break, this is the time. And then you can come back, and I have a few activities, one of which is a poetry writing activity. After that, let me actually just share this. After that, some breakout rooms for sharing, and then a few minutes of closing worship. I will share this so folks can see what I'm talking about. So the type of poem that I'd love to guide everyone through composing is going to be a list poem. It's literally, you just make a list. And so to me, it feels really accessible to do in a space like this. So if you're interested in writing a list poem, come back in about 5 minutes, and we can do that, because I'd love to work through some of this with y'all. I handed you a lot. Thank you so much for listening. So you can come back at 57. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Did folks get some writing in? Amazing. So then what I would love to do is get you all into some breakout rooms so that you can do shares in smaller groups. There's potential questions to reflect on in the chat. And there's what, 20, how many people here? 20 something, 25. Okay, let's make 6 rooms. Let's assign automatically. All right, it's gonna put you into rooms. The question should remain in the chat, and you just have to click the accept button when it prompts you to join a breakout room. There should be 3 or 4 people in each room. Feel free to say hi to one another, share what you've read if you'd like to, and then you can reflect using the questions that are in the chat right now. I'm gonna go ahead and click create, and
We have Nova.
yes.
How long do we have in the chat?
Let's take 10 minutes and go to the half hour. All right, go ahead and join your groups. Regina Renee.
What?
Hi.
Sorry.
Hi. Hi, Mom. Hi, sister.
Hi, Nova's mom. Hi, Nova's sister.
Hi, Regina Renee.
Oh, Jaleesa said hi.
Hi, Ms. Lisa. Hi.
Oh, how's it going?
This is lovely.
Thank you. Yay, I'm excited. I just like I like poems.
Well, I specifically like list poems,
Hmm.
especially when I'm being like a tad bit irreverent and
Hmm.
trying not, yeah. So,
Hmm. I love a list. You know, nothing
right?
like it. Nothing like it. Does anyone in this de facto breakout group want to share a poem? Oh wait, Jaleesa, can I have some soup? Hold on, I'm gonna go get some soup.
Okay. What did you write about?
What?
What did you write about?
Oh, I was writing about I wrote a thank you list, but it's all kind of jumbled. And so now I'm like, ooh, do I want to work on my other list poem?
Thank you one is good. I wrote one for Lent.
Mm-hmm. What? Oh, for Lent?
Yes.
What are you giving up? Never gonna give you up.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Never gonna let you down. Oh, does this have wontons in it? Yeah, it does. That's fine. Okay. Maybe I'll eat them. Maybe it's that kind of day. Maybe I eat the wontons today.
I don't think I've ever eaten the wontons in wonton soup.
What do you get it for?
The broth.
You like egg drop soup?
I love egg drop soup.
This is egg drop soup with wontons. Best of both worlds.
Mm,
You don't like the wontons at all? In general, you don't like wontons?
not in soup. I'm one of those people.
Oh, I want to see what my mom's doing. Should I go join the group my mom's doing? Should I go spy on my mom?
Ooh, yeah. Go spy on your mom. I
Okay,
need
I'm
to.
gonna be right back.
Okay. Are you still there, Jaleesa?
All right, I'm gonna bring them back. Anyone would like to share? Thanks. Folks want to share?
Do you want us to speak out?
Yeah, sure. I'm totally.
So I would say it felt hopeful and in the moment it was lovely.
Here, presence is very important to me.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I'm going to confess I had difficulty with the exercise. I'm a slow and deliberate writer. And so I really struggled with what to write. And I don't really feel like I really got anything. And I apologize, but it's just how my brain works.
That's okay. You can write a list at any time. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
We talked a little bit about about witness and the I don't know, on your slide when you introduced this, you said witness, and the active nature of witness, and how Quakers are very, I think in the past, what am I trying to say? I think witnessing is a much more active word in Quakerism than it might be outside of it. And I think that's a really special aspect of Quakerism, and I think something that should be like utilized more as a way to bring people into beloved community and to recognize the truth of what's happening and just the insidious violence of every day.
Thank you, Mish. Great to see you also.
You too. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, John.
Nova, I want to thank you for the place you started in acknowledging beyond the Bible for you, because I think there's an apostasy to claiming that the canon is closed and that God's truth is no longer being revealed. And I found your poem revelatory and inspired. So thank you for that. And I think that touches on what Mish was just saying in terms of Quakers bearing witness, that speaking as God moves us to. So thank you for that. And thank you for the poem you wrote and shared with us.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think for me, when I sat down to write, the words of Psalm 89 kept lingering in my mind. And I couldn't help it but just think about how we read Psalm 89 and what I was writing. So in my poem, actually, I felt so powerless. I felt defeated. I felt weak, worried, scared, unaware of what might happen or come next. And I really think it's because I have read Psalm 89 severally, but not in the way and in the context within which we have read it today and how it spoke to me. It really was present for me at the back of my mind as I wrote my point.
Thank you, Brown. In the chat, Juliana has to drop a little early, but it's a pleasure being with you all. And Della says, I appreciated the invitation to remember grief. Derek writes, I struggle with open canon. I've spent a lot of time in Unitarian Universalist circles where canon is completely open, and often I can't differentiate between open canon and no canon at all. And with no canon at all, it is challenging for a religious community to have a shared narrative that creates a shared language for community. Thank you so much for all of these comments in the chat. And yeah, Derek, I sit with that. I sit with that really often. The balance of what I understand to be the truth of continuing revelation and the reality of what does identity mean? What does it mean to belong somewhere? And that's kind of a question that canon can answer. But for me, it's the expansiveness of widening our understanding of canon allows more people to belong and people to belong differently. So that's how I kind of reconcile it, because I do think that we have to have something in common. And I think friends are struggling with this now in a lot of ways, theologically. What does it mean to be a friend? What does it mean to be a Quaker when anyone from any other tradition can join us? And so it's a tension that we have to hold. And I think that it's okay to be in tension sometimes. Intentionality rises up from tension. Thank you. We're at about 40 minutes after the hour, and so I'm wondering if there are any questions from folks. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about everything that was shared, or anything else that might be rising up for you. If there aren't questions, some of the last things that I want to say are just some upcoming things besides saying thank you for enjoying this with me. I have some upcoming events happening in next weekend. Oh my gosh. Is Dreaming Sanctuary, which is an event at Pendle Hill for queer folks, intergenerational queer event retreat. There are very few spaces left if anyone's interested, but if you are an adult young friend or a person of color, we have reserved space for younger folks and for friends of color. Feel free to reach out to me if you're interested in that. Also upcoming at FGC is Encountering Spirit, which I'm considering my birthday present because it starts on my birthday, April 12th. That's going to be an online retreat as we are reimagining what gathering looks like. It's completely virtual and for 2 days. And then there's FGC Gathering, which I am partially responsible for and incredibly excited about, June 30th to July 6th. I wrote last year's dates on my presentation, I'm noticing. And that should be fun. More information about that coming out on Instagram and in your inboxes. And if you're interested in just like talking with me, my contact is novathefriend@gmail.com, on Instagram, on Twitter. all of it. If you go onto TikTok, if you go onto a social media and type in Nova the Friend, you will find me. So feel free to follow. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for being here and spending this time. We can spend the remainder of time in worship. And if anyone has anything rise up, it's worship rules. So happy to worship with you all and thank you all for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Nova. I think I just want to voice and echo that again, and thank you for being here with us and for sharing with us. This has been very uplifting and eye-opening for most of us, and I know that we will keep these discussions coming. We have another lecture in 2 weeks. I will send out information about that, and I see Della's hand as well.
Oh, I see you have a question. Yes.
Yes, I just want to add that we will be having a follow-up conversation to the Willson lectures on the 29th of February. The Quaker Leadership Center is sponsoring this it's primarily focused at Quaker leaders, but it's open to everybody. And Adria Galizia will be facilitating that for us. So you are invited to join us for that. We'll send out information about it to all of you and invite you to be part of thinking about how what you're hearing tonight and in the next Willson lecture, how those challenges and those invitations can be incorporated into the life of our meetings and the life of us as individual friends.
Highly encourage folks to attend next week. Lauren Brownlee is amazing, and I adore that friend so much. So it'll be a treat. And if there aren't any more questions or announcements, let's settle into some worship.
Thank you, friends. Thank you for coming. God bless you. Be well. Please watch out for my email for the next one in February 22nd. God bless you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaleesa. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Regina Renee. Thanks, Naya. And thank you, Brown, so much.
Thank you so much, George.